Please check out azreveals.com and azreveals on social channels. Another story I want to talk about, this one's really bad because the amount is very big. So there was a time a while back, we sell some pretty cheap sports cards on Amazon, low price stuff. And so I was really having to examine our profit margins very closely, breaking every little component down. So I start breaking it down and I realized I'm like, one of the fees that Amazon charges is called the referral fee, right? Their kind of percentage cut. And I'm like, I thought it was 15% in our category. And I'm looking through our reports, I'm like, they're all 20%. That's interesting. So like double checking, and again, you're kind of like, am I seeing something wrong? You're like, finally like, okay, I must be right here. So like, well, let me start small rather than, hey, you did this horrible thing and you owe me all this money. Like, let me just start small. So I took like one transaction. We're talking pennies, 8 cents or whatever, right? Hey, Amazon, this is supposed to be 15%. Oh my gosh, sir, yes, you're correct. No problem. We refund you. Yeah, all set. And you're like, interesting. Like, but I sold that product like 6 times this month. So can I get refunded for those other 6 times? And they, oh yes, sir, we see it. Okay, you're all set. You're refunded. Good. Like, okay, but that happened with this other product, right? So I kept stepwise increasing what I was asking for, right? I got all the way to maybe about $2,000. Again, I could be wrong at maybe $1,500, $3,000, but something approximately around there, right? They granted. And then finally, I am like opening the floodgates. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like this has been happening for 6 years. What the heck, right? So I look back through and finally I'm like, it's $85,000. $85,000 accumulated over those 6 years of these fees, right? So I put together the whole thing, the whole report, submit it. The reply, like, sorry, according to our policy and whatever, we can only go back 90 days, 60 days, whatever the thing was. I had a couple rounds of that. One person would say 90, one person would say 60, one person. Again, I may not be, did they say 30? Did they say 60? This was a few years ago, right? But something of that nature, right? Kind of giving me the runaround and jockeying me around. So finally, like, geez, I'm probably not going to succeed with this path of trying to get my full $85,000, right? So you start to kind of just say like, well, take what you can get for starters, right? It's like, fine, you want 90 days, 60 days, whatever they say, get it all together, send it off to you. And they take like 5 or 6 days to reply. They say, well, sorry, sir. Pretend they said 90 days. Well, sorry, sir. Actually now like 6 days of this is not valid because the 90-day clock has changed. And you're like, yeah, but you took 6 days to reply to me. That's why. Sorry, you'll have to resubmit it to be reflective of the current 90 days backdated. So you do it all again, submit it again, same again and again and again, like a hamster wheel of that. Sorry. You're a couple days off, because you took a few days to reply. Like, what the heck, right? Or finally you're like, okay, if that's the case, can you just shave off that chunk of transactions and at least just give me the rest and process that? Oh, no. I got to redo it all for you and redo the report, right? And there were also times where you submit that report on Amazon, like we were talking earlier about sports cards and the little UPC code. They have what they call an ASIN. It's like their little barcode. So the reports that you download from them are showing SKUs. That's like a thing you do on the seller side, not ASINs. So I also had it where I submit the whole thing, everything's all in, the game about, oh, it's 90 days, it is or isn't qualified. You get it all through, and finally, oh, sorry, sir, this report is all in SKUs. We require ASINs for this. And you're like, but in the original ones where you gave me those reimbursements, they were all by SKU and you accepted it. Why does it change now, right? But oh, no, like do whatever they say. But then you start looking through, you're like, to do that report, like I would have to do that all manually because just the way these sales reports come out, they come out with SKUs. There's no ASINs on these transaction reports. You're like, do you know how much time that would take to compile that? And even if you said, well, I'll just hire like a virtual assistant to work on it overnight or something, but still you're just like, this is nuts. You granted in the beginning. Why does the rules change now, right? And you think to yourself, you're like, I'm one seller in that category. We're a fairly large seller in that category, but definitely many way bigger than us. You're like, I'm one seller, $85,000. How many other sellers were affected by this? How much is that in total? It's got to be millions, easily. You know what I mean? Like, and I only was selling in there for 6 years. What about the guys that were selling 10, 15, etc.? Like, this is nuts. And again, someone might say, oh, you're just saying this, you misinterpreted. It is like a line of demarcation. You look at the transaction report, and if you did like a little Excel formula to see like, okay, it's 20%, right around, give or take a day or whatever, when I complained and really dug my heels in, boom, the whole category changes to 15%. And it's been that way from day on. Every other sports card seller, you can thank me. I am responsible for that. I asked several other sellers too, peers, hey, did you guys notice that too? Yeah. Everyone confirmed, yes. When I made my really intense complaint, the whole category, millions of sports card listings, all changed to the correct 15% instead of 20. Please check out azreveals.com and azreveals on social channels.